Hello and welcome to Empire Watch Weekly Live. I'm Ileana Chan and I'm here with my co-host Sara Vivacqua. Hi Sarah,
Hi,
how are
Ileana, what's
you?
up?
What's up? A lot of things are up, and we are actually very excited because this is the last week for this format of the show. We're actually going to be changing the format coming next week. So we're going to be really excited to discuss a little bit about what that's going to look like with you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. I know Atalal, am I saying that right, Atalal? Greetings from Sydney, Australia
Oh,
at
wow.
11 p.m. Oh my gosh, wow. I hope we don't bore you to death, but bore you to sleep. That's still good. It's good to have sleep. And also, hello to John Friddle, and I think it's 6 a.m. there. And Raphael, of course, Raphael from Brazil, which I suppose it's the same time zone as you, Sarah. So good morning, Raphael.
Yeah, it's a good morning for him. Wow, we have people from Sydney. That's amazing. Yeah, all over the world. I'm really happy. We have the space where we can dialogue without borders.
Yeah, and I hope you guys also are enjoy our new format of the show because I
Yeah,
think
what
it's
is the
really
new
good.
format? Spill the beans, Ileana. Why don't you tell the audience?
Okay, should we just say what it is? So basically, it is called Global South Rising. It's still a weekly live show, but it's focusing more on the Global South and how the Global South is building a multilateral world, which is, I think, no matter because sometimes people are like, oh, you guys have different opinions or you seem to be arguing, and it's like, yes, we're very passionate people, so we do have arguments, but this show will sort of allow for three different, because we're also bringing on a regular co-host, Jo Omorim, who we have actually had on this weekly live, but we'll have three different perspectives on three different stories, all about the Global South and elucidating what's happening in the Global South and how we're building a multilateral world. It's the challenges as well as the struggles as well as the achievements of the Global South. And then also the first hour of the show will be with a special guest each week.
Yeah, and we need to say we're still going to be bad mouthing the empire. We're still going to definitely this is intrinsic part of the agenda, but we want to show a perspective that another world is possible. There are alternatives, and those alternatives are growing as the empires of the world lose their strength. We want to talk about the birth of a new multilateral order and how this is shaping, and as an inspiration, of course, with a great deal of criticizing the dark forces that don't want to acknowledge them. So we want to acknowledge this change in the world, and yeah, I
Yeah,
think that
because basically we're
to say João is
Jean.
son of one of most prominent Brazilian diplomats, Celso Amorim, who is Lula's foreign policy minister from forever, for many different governments. So he was born and bred in this environment of diplomacy. So he will bring balance between the passion between Ileana and my passion. We hopefully he'll bring a more diplomatic tone, which I have known, and we can
I
learn from
will
him.
learn from him, I'm hoping.
Yeah, he's a filmmaker, and he also has intensive work with China. Know China very well, and also we have in the first week we have Carlos Martinez with us, and yeah, so I think it's
Friend
going to
of
be
the show,
friends
Carlos
of the
Martinez.
yeah.
Co-founder of No Cold War, not as well, actually co-founder of No Cold War, but also Friends of Socialist
Yeah,
China, and author of this really good book, which I have somewhere.
I have it here because you gave it to me.
Yes, but I bought another copy because I feel like everyone should.
Oh, for you.
Yeah, so it's The East is Still Red. Like, it's a really good book on China and how it's still red. It's still red. So yeah, so I'm really excited about it, but mainly just to reiterate. Oh, we should show the promo, but I think
Yeah,
just to reiterate,
problem.
the idea behind it is we are anti-imperialist, we're staunchly anti-imperialist, but people often are feeling very defeated. Don't believe that there is an alternative to the imperialist world that we live in, and we feel strongly that there is one, and that's the whole point. Like, that's the whole point to be anti-imperialist, so that you can actually build something better. Otherwise,
This is part of the conservative and imperialist propaganda to remove people from utopia, from a different. It's the huge part of the brainwashing, right, Ileana? To say this is the only way of living. This is the right way of living. This is the desirable way of living. This is what everyone should aim for. This is part of the colonization process, to want to become the colonizer, the imperialist, and to think the world needs to tick this way. And we're going to show no. The world is big.
The world is big, and there is an alternative to imperialism. That's the point. So, okay, so I'm gonna do this, show you guys the promo. I hope you like it. Tell us what you think in the comments. Okay, so what do you guys think? I love it.
I think it's so professional, and I'm so proud of you.
That's
By the way, I don't do my graphics because I would ruin the show. I love it.
I mean, it's graphic. It's our graphic designer, Martha Stevens. She's amazing. So all this stuff is her. I use her templates, and sometimes I F it up, but the main design for her, and I think it's great. But looking at some of the commenters, they're talking about Maduro and Celia Flores disappeared from the mainstream media, but luckily that is our first topic for this week. We're covering how the U.S. is blocking funding for Maduro's legal defense, and you're going to get into that from a legal perspective and a political perspective. I'm very interested to hear about that. And then, of course, the DOJ tampered with evidence in the Epstein files to hide Trump's crimes. I don't think anyone's surprised about that, but now we have confirmation with the investigation into that. And then, of course, the capture of El Mencho. Mexico fights U.S. narco-terrorism. This is a topic that I'm very interested in because I'm seeing on my FYP, on my social media, all these reports about the cartel taking over Mexico. And of course, I feel very curious about what's really happening considering the narco-terrorist context that Trump is pushing. And then, of course, we have Modi in Israel, which is quite horrible. So everyone trigger warning before we get to that story. So should we start with U.S. blocks funding for Maduro's legal defense? Sarah, do you want to tell us what's happening with that?
I just think that this is so not mentioned in the media. So Trump administration will not let Venezuela pay for Maduro legal fees. This is what his lawyer just said. Barry's Pollack, who is also used to be Assange's lawyer, and it's very disturbing. So the thing is, Maduro defense is paid by the Venezuelan state, and the Venezuelan state is under sanctions. So there is a bar that Venezuela, that the US, it would be like closing a deal, a service deal with Venezuela, and therefore their lawyers will not be able to get the money from the Venezuela government. So what the Barry Pollack, the attorney, did, he asked for a permission to pay the legal, so that he can get paid the legal fees of the president, Nicolas Maduro, and his criminal proceedings. Yeah. So Pollack, he warned, look, this measure prevents my client from fully exercising his constitutional right of a defense. I think this is so obvious. You're barring Maduro's his defense, his right to have a lawyer. I think maybe what the US is trying to do here is definitely a classical lawfare. We've seen this. And lawfare begins by violating the procedural guarantees that people have. The procedural guarantees are a necessary condition to preserve your rights. It's through the procedural guarantees that you can exercise your right. And if you cannot choose a lawyer and have a proper defense, how are you going to defend yourself from a sham trial, right? So this is what Pollack says, quote, if the Trump administration does not change its position, it would be interfering with Maduro's Sixth Amendment right to counsel. That's what he said. And he put a court filing. And we know Maduro and his wife, they were detained early this January, not detained, it was hijacked early this January after a illegal hijacking interference in Venezuela's sovereignty. And he was transferred to New York, where he's now facing several charges. The charges are absolutely ridiculous: a cartel organization, drug trafficking. Why we know Venezuela, even according to the UN, offers between 5 and 1% of the total drug passes or comes from Venezuela that reach the US. And US
it doesn't come from Venezuela either. It just passes through, and that's even, it's less than 5%. It's not actually manufactured in Venezuela. So it's such an insignificant amount, if any,
Yeah. And I mean, the opioid crisis is made in the US. They made and distribute them there. We all know this is absolutely a sham argument against Maduro, but I was really shocked. It seems that they are going with all guns for it. We've seen this in the Assange case, how they will prevent people to exercise any right they might have. And that's what's going on with Maduro. And then, is it possible to do a crowdfunding? I was looking at that. Yes, it is possible to do a crowdfunding. I'm not sure whether Barry Pollack and his defense team would want a crowdfunding, because this depoliticized the action. They want to show as well, look, I have my right to defense being hijacked here, being barred here. This already renders the whole thing inconstitutional. I mean, everything is inconstitutional in this case. So yeah, but it would be possible to do a crowdfunding. But is this being reported anywhere? Nowhere. It's being reported nowhere.
And we have to remember, too, that sanctions, especially unilateral U.S. sanctions, which I think the U.S. is sanctioning over 60 countries or something pretty significant. We should look up that number. But according to the Lancet study released last year, just U.S. unilateral sanctions causes upwards of 500, 600,000 deaths per year. So sanctions are an act of war. They're not an alternative or a more peaceful alternative to war. They are an active act of war. And so the U.S. using that as a reason to further bar, it's just like, that's the thing with the U.S. They use layers and layers and layers of this type of strangulation on countries that are striving for sovereignty. And also they use terms that the American public may not understand. They may think, oh, well, of course, there are sanctions against Venezuela, so you can't, as if it's normal. I think that's the dangerous thing about this sort of indoctrination, is that sanctions sounds more benign than an act of war.
Oh, so much so.
Like, reason.
Yeah. When I was working in the British government as a lawyer, one of my bosses used to be in charge of sanctions, and with the naturality she talked about sanctions, she is a self-entitled wannabe feminist who says she's there to empower women, that she votes for left and defend Palestine. In the other hand, she was talking about working in the legal department doing sanctions, and that sanctions would be high risk. And I was telling her it's not high risk, it's just simply illegal. And it's mass murder, I thought to myself. So you say someone who says it identifies with progressive politics, doing sanctions and justifying it, normalizing it for the sake of self-preservation.
Well,
This is
and
the
maybe
level of
really
brainwash
believing it.
and self-entitlement. What right has a country to sanction the other one, to sanction the people, the working people? How stupid you need to be to believe this is legitimate, and how cynical you need to be to tell you're a progressive person. This is a department you should not be working with, or should be marking everything as illegal.
Yeah, it's I think, okay, so one thing that could come out of this type of news item is to sort of emphasize this idea that the sanctions are illegal, like
Yeah.
you're saying. The sanctions do cause death or an act of war. And so again, to your point, crowdfunding perhaps. I mean, there's something to be said about crowdfunding also raising awareness, but you have to do it in a way that
Yeah.
holds the US accountable for their sanctions as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Maybe a mix of
but it
both.
shouldn't be
Right.
allowed. I mean, essentially, it's ridiculous to have a private fund, like that he is being held, he's specifically being kidnapped because he is the president of Venezuela. There's no other reason for it.
Yeah.
So then to have a crowd, like the fact that Venezuela can't help their own president, that's ridiculous on so many levels.
Yeah, I think they're underestimating the fierce and fighting nature of the Bolivarian Revolution. It's such a strong legacy. You know, I had in my show, just to finish up this, I had in my show last week, in my show in Brazil, a lawyer, criminal lawyer. He went to Cuba and she was devastated. She said, I met in Cuba people with a master's degree who were helping me as a tourist guide, and this guy.
Oh no, I think we have. Oh,
In
you're
the
back.
pharmacy. She had some pain in the arm. There was nothing there, just organic stuff. And she was saying, as a criminal lawyer with over 40 years of experience, I'm very comfortably saying I classify this as a genocide.
You froze for a little bit, but you're saying, okay, sorry. Just to repeat that last bit because I think it was important.
Yeah.
Really
So she said she's a criminal lawyer.
Again. I'm sorry.
So she's a very high-profile lawyer here in Brazil, a criminal lawyer. And she said, I'm very comfortably saying that what I saw in Cuba, perpetrated by the US, is to be called a genocide. Genocide does not require guns. Starvation is one of the guns that you can use for a genocide. And she is a criminal lawyer. She doesn't use those words lightly or legal concepts rightly. You know, she's a very measured and technical person. She said, what I saw there is allow people to die. This is a form, a classic too of genocide, what she's seeing in Cuba.
Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. That to me very much reminds me of how Gaza, what was happening in Gaza before October 7th. It was happening. A genocide was happening. Nobody really was talking about it. Sarah, are you back yet? Audio seems to be fine, but I think her internet's completely gone. So maybe we will see if she can come back. In the meantime, thank you so much, guys, for your feedback on our promo. I'm glad you like it. I'm very excited about. Oh, you're back, Sarah. I was just thanking the comments.
I changed my internet provider now. I have a mobile. One doesn't work. We know we're having huge, massive rains here in Brazil, like destroying a lot of things. Not in my city, but nearby, destroying. So things aren't working really well. They never worked well, but now they're working worse. And yeah, you know, the fun thing I was going to meet some friends, and I have another friend who lived 10 years in the UK, and started raining cats and dogs. And she called me, I so do want to cancel this meeting, but you and we are the last people in that chat that can cancel over bad weather.
That's very true. If you've lived in the UK, you have no excuse at all. But yeah. Okay, so moving on to another, a topic that is actually, it's as outrageous in a way, but less surprising. I'm going to put this up here. I mean, I don't know if anyone was shocked by this. The Justice Department withheld and removed some Epstein files related to Trump. I think we knew this was happening because remember that that press conference that we actually showed on the show where I think it was from CNN, the journalist basically was talking to Trump about this, and he was like, "Now that this is old news, now that I've not been found in the file,
Yeah.
no one cares
Oh,
about this news story."
make sure you're not found in the files, right? Yeah, you're right. It was like a confession. No, nobody's gonna find me in the files because I made sure I removed.
Yeah, he's like, now that we made sure that I'm removed from the files, this is a non-story. Let's move on.
Yeah.
It was so obvious. But so let me just read this. A good comment from Schwaster. Shouldn't Pam Bondi forced to resign? I mean, that Pam Bondi is what you called her, Nazi Barbie. Should be. I mean, the thing, she's just a spokesperson for the admin. So if she's forced to resign, it's just a performative action, right? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think Pam Bondi is the perfect bitch for the show. She's an empty vessel. She would follow whatever orders is being given to her with an incredible cynicism. So she knows exactly what she's doing and she has no shame whatsoever. I think what's the most astounding in Pam Bondi is her demeanor, how she knows. She can lie through her teeth. She can pervert every single argument with such a lightness to it. I think this is the most outrageous thing. She can stand a huge pressure because she has, you can say she's someone that has no values.
I mean, she's literally being trotted out there
Yeah.
to basically repeat, I think, the dialogue that
Yeah.
they've all agreed on. So I don't, I mean, yes, is it useful at all to hold these types of figures accountable? I think in some ways not, because the problem is then you make them scapegoats and you act like you have done something for justice. The admin itself will sort of place the responsibility on these people and then act like they're morally correct for doing so.
I think you need to hold accountable whoever is involved at the proportion they are involved. Pam Bondi is involved in a cover up,
Yeah,
and
but
she
you
has
need to go up,
yeah,
go.
she has vested authority. She has vested public faith. She has authority to do what she does. So she cannot wash her hands and saying that Trump asked her to do that. She has her own.
I mean, she can, and then I still think she should be. This reminds me of that movie with Tom Cruise, A Few Good Men.
I've never seen this movie.
Oh my god, it's from my childhood. I'll just put it that way. But yeah, so basically, soldiers committed war crimes at the behest of the general commander, whatever. This is my interpretation from a movie I watched like 30 years ago. But essentially, this is the thing: you're still responsible for your actions, even when you're following orders. So this is where Pam Bondi should be held responsible for that,
Yeah,
but
and
she still.
and she's not even a military structure of a war. She is in a day-to-day regular job, which is head of the DOJ. So if she is not, and she, when you're a lawyer, you have to follow the Constitution above any other orders. So she's violating the Constitution. She's violating her mandate. She's violating criminal law because what she's doing. I mean, there's a huge dimension to this cover up, Ileana. If this is really proven, we can say Pam Bondi, along with Trump, probably Trump will be a conspiracy level. She's obstructing justice. She hasn't even received one single witness, not a single from the 1,000 witnesses, haven't talked to them. She has a duty to act here. So she's obstructing justice. She's violating the Epstein File Transparency Act. She's concealing evidence. She's tampering with evidence, and she's abusing her office. And I mean, I could go on and on and on what kind of violations she has at administrative, constitutional, criminal level even. And Trump, if he has directed, which all seems to be truth, direct them. And what or not even directed, but was aware of the suppression, he at least committed conspiracy to obstruct justice.
I mean, I'm sure he was not unaware. That would be ridiculous. But let me read
I'm
the.
just doing legal talk here. We know these people committed a
Right.
series of crime to obstruct the course of justice for these women. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know what is
So shall I
astounding?
read the
Yeah,
report so everybody knows
yeah.
what
Read the
what
report.
their
Sorry
cases
about
are?
that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So it's an NPR investigation. For those who don't know, NPR is a national public radio. It's well regarded in the U.S. As a more neutral source, but it's obviously, it is nationally public. It's state news media. So like, even though it's supposedly more neutral, like you have to take that into account, right? It's state news media, but and supposedly public funded. An NPR investigation has found that the Justice Department withheld and in some cases actively removed from its database dozens of pages of FBI records directly related to two women who accused President Trump of sexually abusing them when they were minors, introduced to him by, guess who? Jeffrey Epstein. The first accuser alleges that around 1983, when she was approximately 13 years old, Epstein introduced her to Trump, who sexually assaulted her. The FBI interviewed her 4 times. Only the first interview, which does not mention Trump, is in the public database. The remaining 3 interviews, along with accompanying notes, are missing. NPR's review of serial numbers stamped onto the files identified approximately 53 pages cataloged by the Justice Department, but not published. And then the second accuser was a key prosecution witness in the criminal trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. She described being taken by Epstein to Trump's Margo Margo Lago. How come I can't say that? Margo Lago. You would think I would be able to say that word because it's always being mentioned, to meet him while she was around 13. Oh gosh, 13 years and being abused. One of her FBI interviews was removed from the public database after initial publication on January 30th and only restored on February the 19th. An interview with her mother, which mentions Trump, remains offline. So when we're looking at the cover-up dimension, Robert Garcia, is that Republican Robert
Yeah, it's
Garcia?
a Republican. Yeah, Republic.
So this is a bipartisan sort of investigation. Republican Robert Garcia, after reviewing unredacted evidence logs at the DOJ, stated that the department appears to have illegally withheld FBI interviews with the survivor who accused President Trump of heinous crimes. Attorney General Pam Bondi, as Sarah calls her, Nazi Bobby, and Deputy AG Todd Blanche had written to Congress on February 14th, Valentine's Day, insisting that no records were withheld on the basis of embarrassment, reputational harm, or political sensitivity. NPR's findings directly contradict that assurance. So the DOJ has declined to answer NPR's specific questions on the record. The White House responded that Trump has been totally exonerated of anything relating to Epstein and that the files contain untrue and sensationalist claims about the president. But really, if that was true, then they should release all the files unredacted, shouldn't they? And I think it's very telling that this is a bipartisan, I think, investigation too, because I do remember Ed Markey, I think the Democrat, also looked at these files and also came to a similar conclusion as this, right? That was reported as well. Also, it should just be released. Like if it's sensationalist and untrue, let us look at the files and judge for ourselves, right? Because it's definitely public interest. There's no reason to redact it at this point, is there?
Yeah, I
Also,
think yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Also, one question I had, do you remember this when Ghislaine Maxwell said that Trump was not in the files, that he would
I
not
don't
be
remember
implicated?
that, honestly. Really? Oh God. Well, there's plenty of, yeah. You know what, Ileana? I think people would say, well, for some reasons, you can redact things. Yeah, there are legal grounds for protection, but not in this case. In this case, the Epstein Transparency Act is very clear that you cannot redact things like that. You cannot redact things and in any case, you cannot redact things to cover up a crime. And that's what they're doing. Selectively, what they did, as you say, is part of a strategy. We dump loads of things. They dump duplicates. They said, "Oh, yeah, we're holding duplicates." No, there is an array of duplication there. This is not rocket science. I've worked with disclosure for many, many years. You have computer programs that can deduplicate, remove the technical errors, and you have teams and teams of people. And they have published with the victims' names and covered up every single perpetrated along with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, and it's
you
ridiculous.
couldn't do this legislation. They are at very least violating the Epstein Transparency Act at very, very minimal level. This is not what their duty, DOJ duty is.
I mean, and also if you're talking about duplication, if you actually look on the website and you type in any name, there are hundreds of duplications. There's duplications across emails, because anytime something is referred to, this the entire thing is full of duplication. So that doesn't make any sense at all.
If you go through the files, for instance, when you put an email, you need to put the entire email chain, because one thing can exonerate, but the next one can be very damning. And loads of things, for instance, this talking about a 9-year-old Brazilian girl. I found in the US, they found, and then I looked for it, Jeffrey Epstein being introduced to a 9-year-old Brazilian girl saying she's sexy and cute, and attaching 5 pictures. The pictures aren't there. Why are the pictures not there?
I mean, they should be redacted, like they should be covered.
Cover the faces, but we should be able to recognize this is a 9-year-old. But even worse, we have a fact-check agency from the Silicon Valley say, well, it's not 9 years old, it was an error. AOC error conversion, it was 19 years old. But the very interesting is that lots of parliamentarians went to ask DOJ for the metadata and for even the metadata of the conversion. DOJ never even opened the door for them. So if you have exonerating evidence, don't hire up a Silicon Valley to say to you. So every single thing in this disclosure is a overt mess, intentional chaos to dissipate people from the truth, to dissipate these victims from justice, is absolutely outrageous. And you know what, Ileana? The FBI interviewed this one of the witnesses, the first accusers that alleged that she was 13 when Trump sexually assaulted her. She was interviewed 4 times with FBI. That means FBI was taking it seriously. But who above in the chain of the FBI did not go forward with this? So I think there is an interference, a much larger interference in the course of justice than just not releasing the files.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, because I've seen FBI agents saying you could see documentaries, but FBI agents who say we were pursuing this, we are interviewing this person, we are interviewing this person. We know Acosta, former Trump's Ministry of Work, did a deal with Epstein, which is very questionable. So Epstein was being protected by the highest of hierarchies, while officers were trying to bring justice to these victims. And this is, I think the cover-up is far more extensive than we think. I think the police were prevented. This police on the ground talking to the victims, interviewing them over and over again, were prevented to bring justice to them at a structural and institutional level. We want to know We want to know that.
So, as a lawyer, can you also explain the other crimes that could be involved in here?
So let's talk only about the fact that this disclosure indicates everything leads us to believe that there has been deliberate problems with the disclosure. In this investigation by the National Public Radio has been since the 70s doing very respected, rigorous investigation reporting. What they did here is at face value simple, but it's not. They have cross-checked every 3 million documents probably with help of computers to see what is missing. Let's cross-check what they say they're going to release and what is missing. And they found out suppressing evidence that was there and is no longer of assaults on Trump. So this is a huge thing. This is a really huge thing. So as I was telling you, this is obstruction of justice. You're suppressing, you're tampering evidence in a federal investigation, and it doesn't matter if this creates a problem or not in the results of the charges. This is in itself, irrespectively of the legal consequences, in itself, it's already a crime. And then, of course, there we go, the violation of Epstein files, because you were holding documents that are mandated to be released by statute. Yeah, and this is a contempt of Congress as well, and a directly statutory violation, exposing DOJ officials to civil and even criminal liability. Yeah, you are concealing evidence, you're suppressing evidence, you are actively removing from the public database mandated by statute things that should be published. So you're tampering with evidence. You are tampering with a crime scene here, and abuse of office. And then you have an array of violations. And the higher you are, the more severe is this abuse. I would go even further. I think this is corruption at the highest level. And Trump is part of the chain, even if you cannot prove that he directed it by certain standards, you need to know that he was at least aware. And you know what? As a political consequence, we could have here an impeachment of Trump. This would be a valid, legitimate reason for Trump to be impeached.
So I think it'll be interesting if the Democrats do not attempt some sort of impeachment of Trump. What does that say about the Democrats here? Because this is actually one of the legitimate recourses that they could use. There's been talk of impeaching Trump over and over again on different things, on different grounds. But this one, they had much weaker reasons, if you think about the Steele dossier, which was found to be largely a hoax or put together by political opponents, etc. And then this is actual evidence here. So if they don't pursue this, I think it reflects really badly on them, and it suggests active participation, because we know that the Epstein files are.
Ileana, it's a very good question. It's a very, very good question. I think if you think an impeachment has always a very is a risk, is a political risk, because if he gets away with this impeachment trial again, he comes stronger. And I'm sorry, why they didn't do this while Trump was outside of office? That would be the right time to hold him to account.
I think they didn't
manage that. The justice, I think what it also talks about the co-option of the justice system in the US. We had in Brazil, Bolsonaro being held accountable. He's today in jail. When I have a bad day, it's raining, I think Bolsonaro is in jail. Everything changes in my mind. We hold accountable a coup d'etat. The US,
I think
coup d'etat attempt. They could not hold Trump into accountable back then. Will they have the political force to?
I don't think it's about political force. I think, and the commenters, feed me Seymour. He said they said, Hillary lied, never met Epstein. This really brings to the point that the Epstein files implicates everybody in the
as well.
establishment.
Yeah.
And like we talked about last week, it really is it sort of illustrates the imperial infrastructure versus a left versus right thing. So obviously, because obviously you're right, they should have charged Trump during, when he wasn't president. That would be a lot easier. But the thing is, then they would also have to talk about Clinton. They would have to
Yes.
talk about, I think, Larry Summers. They would have to talk about Bill Gates, etc. And they don't want to. They never
Exactly.
want to hold any of them accountable.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're absolutely right. Let's say we have genuinely Democrats and Republicans that want justice. There are these people too, both sides. Yeah, that want justice for the Epstein. These people have a political problem because Trump is not only sued by the institution, but also from interest of some other people in the Republican Party and Democratic Party that doesn't want to go through too deep in this. I think you're absolutely right. Look, at people wanting real justice for the Epstein files face here a dilemma, a huge dilemma because of the forces they are confronting here.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is in the UK, they've managed to find two scapegoats who are also guilty, by the way, but Peter Mendelsohn, and ex-Prince Andrew. And they're willing to go after these two. I mean, granted, as I erroneously said, the ex-Prince Andrew was charged. He was arrested. I would like to see some charges, but so far, none. But at least they did identify these two individuals as individuals that would be supposedly held in account. And you did say that Peter Mendelsohn has he been charged this week?
I don't think he has been charged, but I mean, it's still a long way to go with them. They just
Right.
sat in a police office and replied or not to some questions, so they had a day at the police office. Who hasn't had that?
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah,
I
who hasn't had a day on the police? So I mean, there's still a long way to go with them. But yeah, even in the UK, we're seeing a level of response. Yeah.
Right.
But we see nothing in the US in
Yeah, that's
terms of institutional movement. We're not saying the civil society. I mean, the civil society, I bet, is furious, and I bet a lot of people feel outraged about this. And this is a huge political cost for Trump, not only for Trump, but the entire system. But if you think there is not a single institutional move, do you know where that doesn't exist? In regimes, in authoritarian regimes. This is one of the symptoms that indicates that Trump is an authoritarian regime. If you cannot even have an independency of justice, this is one of the first red flags.
I mean, I just think that it is beyond Trump, right? But you're right. I think this shows you it is definitely bipartisan sort of ability to thwart the law. But I guess talking about that inability to thwart the law, I guess suppose we can move on to the next news item, which I'm very interested to hear about. So Sara, this is the capture of El Mencho. Can you please tell us what's happening? Because of course, outside of Mexico, we're just seeing this sort of chaos type of it's the type of coverage that I would say when I see this type of thing in social media, I usually think it's some sort of color revolution or some sort of justification for the US to intervene, because it tends to be so over the top, so scary, and without any understanding of what is actually genuinely happening. Just so tell us what you've managed to find.
I'm gonna read here. So we have the capture of El Mencho, and this is a report from Brasil de Fato, a socialist Brazilian outlet where they are excellent. I have to say, I think it's one of the best newspapers in Brazil. They have been on the side of Julian Assange when nobody was. They are a truly anti-imperialist force in Brazil. Very
I
attached.
also interviewed someone from Brazil de facto as well.
They are the best.
Yeah.
Really you already, your instinct already led you to the best place to interview someone. So well done. So Scheinbaum government strength against the US and organized crime in Mexico. I'm going to read the news and then we can comment. The death of Nemesio Ceguera Cervantes, El Mencho, represents a turning point in Mexico's fight against organized crime, occurring precisely as Trump threatens military incursion into the Mexican territory under the pretext of combating drug trafficking. The operation was not isolated. His killing was part of a series of actions that in recent weeks have systematically dismantled the structure of the cartel through the arrest of several senior leaders across different regions of the country. A level of coordination, federal capacity that, according to Mexican government sources, would have been unthinkable just a few years ago, given how deeply organized crime had infiltrated state and local governments and security forces. In the hours following El Mencho's death, Cartel Links Group launched hundreds of attacks of military and National Guard installation and coordination blockades across 20 states. That's what you saw. By Sunday night, 90% of blockades had already been cleared, and Tuesday, no further acts of violence were recorded. So this is something extremely interesting. War on drugs, Ileana, as you say, is the official line of Southcom, the South Command.
The Southern Command. The
intervention. They even have.
I guess what is Donald Trump is sort of saying Monroe Doctrine, which is. I mean, it's not really the Monroe Doctrine, but it has it's the same overt imperialism in that region, but under the pretext of a war of drugs, essentially, right?
This is a classic. This has been going on for centuries in South America. South America, it is in a way an expression of the Monroe Doctrine, not only Monroe Doctrine, the classic Monroe Doctrine, where South America is seen as a sphere of influence. So they have legal OTC. When they classify it as OTC, a country is seen, that means, well, let's go there, break up the Amazon is one of their main agendas. So the war on drug has been officially part of the US agenda, especially executed by the Southcom to intervene in Latin American politics with violence, without violence. They say it's a cooperation, a partnership. And we've seen how lately Trump was threatening Claudia Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, with intervention because the drug trafficking in Mexico was horrible and was costing life in the US. So Claudia Sheinbaum just showed Trump. What she did was very, very intelligent. She said, we're going to exchange with the US information, but we are going to carry out the entire operation. So Sheinbaum said, quote, all operations are carried out by federal forces, Mexican federal forces. There is no participation of the US forces in the operation. What exists is the broad exchange of information. So this declaration is not a minor deal. It's the paradigm change. And she was saying after tense negotiations with Washington and with Trump, she's saying, look, Trump, we can deal with our own problems. We can cooperate, but I'm not going to allow military forces from the US to come into my continent under this pretext. And a development of the war on drugs is the war on terror. And when Trump escalates the war on drugs on Venezuela as officially war on terror through the Aliens Act, he's upgrading the war on drugs into and qualify as a war on terror, because then you have no legal barriers. It's all it's nothing irrational. It's all very calculated. And Sheinbaum said, look, we had to kill this person. We didn't want to kill El Mencho. We want him alive, but he shot at the officer, so we had to kill him. But we have zero tolerance. And of course, as you say, the media will selectively show Mexico as a chaos state. Chaos state needing intervention that cannot deal with its own thing. And the same thing in Brazil. I don't know if you remember our second show, we talked about a massacre in Rio, perpetrated by Bolsonaro friends that are with hands in hands with the US. They want blood. They want blood. Do you know what the Lula government did? Well, we are strangling drug trafficking through financial. They unleashed one of the largest drug trafficking containment in Brazilian history that led them to Faria Lima, which is Brazilian's Wall Street. They found out a scheme because organized crime is no longer the guys selling things on the street. They are in parliament. They are in Wall Street. They are in they sat in the chair of the presidency in Brazil, a militian guy. Bolsonaro belongs to the militia of Rio das Pedras. He's a born and bred militian. They are involved all kinds of organized crimes. Look how comfortable am I to say this. So we have in Latin America a huge infiltration. This was one of the biggest challenge in Colombia of Petro. How am I going to expel the militias, the organized drug trafficking and the organized cartels of trafficking the world over, guns, women, whatever, you name it, children, from the structure of the government? And this is one of the biggest achievements of Gustavo Petro. Colombia is a different place today. And Latin American, if the US don't interfere, we can deal with our problems and probably much better than they do. We have the expertise, we are inside, and it's our country. So this is what you say, you correctly identify, is a propaganda to say everything is a chaos in Brazil, everything is a chaos in Mexico. Look, you cannot even go on the street, you cannot do anything.
Yeah, and it also has the added effect of not only suggesting, they need US intervention, but also I think for the American people, it's sort of, it's like, oh, you have ICE, but at least you're not in Mexico, like this idea of like, it could always be worse. It could always, whereas we're looking at ICE going, oh my God.
Yeah, this is a real danger. This is a racial war.
I will say, before we play this Shine Bomb video, which you found, and I think you might have to translate for us, the commenters are having an interesting conversation here in the comment section, because they're saying, as long as drugs are illegal, you can always have a war on drugs. And sort of talking about decriminalizing drugs. And I have to say, it is not really about drugs. Drugs has been a pretext that the CIA has used, and obviously it also has a profitable element of it. So it's very sort of useful in that sense. But I mean, drugs are illegal in China. China takes drugs very seriously because of the Opium War. So you don't have to decriminalize opium, right? Do you know what I mean? Like, just the way they dealt with Opium War was to actually crack down on drugs even more. So that's kind of an interesting, I would just say like an interesting, like, we don't have to decriminalize all drugs, because of the root of the problem is, again, US imperialism, US interference, US imperialism in these different ways. The war of drugs being one of them, but it's just a pretext for them to come into your country under the guise of helping your country, in quotations. They're not helping you, to help you fight the war on drugs. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be drugs.
Yeah, I think you hit the spot that it's just an excuse for US intervention, and decriminalizing drugs may not help this side of the intervention. But maybe what he's trying to say is, from the public health and from incarceration perspective, right. Because, for instance, cases in Brazil, if you are Black and poor, and if you're carrying a little bit of marijuana, you'll go to jail. But if you are in a real mansion, smoking cocaine, it's just
class issue.
Yeah, it would be a class issue.
I think it is a race issue, because if we remember Reagan, like very famously, when Reagan started the war on drugs, part of it was to also control the Black community, because that's why marijuana was considered had such severe sentences, as opposed to what it really is. I mean.
Exactly. Yeah, you bring a very interesting point. It's a form of racial war if you criminalize the user, but you don't really care about the person providing, right? So I think he's touching on this, and I think there are different ways to, as in terms of public health and. But I think, Ileana, people there in Brazil, you have a upper class that lives on cocaine.
Oh,
Do you
gosh.
know that the city of London has one of the most contaminated cocaine waters in the world?
No.
In the city of London, don't open your tap. Buy mineral water. Yeah. So I
But
mean, we
I'm
have
always drinking from the tap.
people that live under Ritalin, under cocaine, under whatever, and these people um, think the problem is the little drug dealer that maybe needs to sell the drug to eat. And
Oh my
you know what
God.
Claudia Schaumbaum did? It's so intelligent. She
Yes,
did
let's
not
look at
enter
it.
on repression. Yeah. So Claudia Schaumbaum did much more than that. I don't know if I think you have the what she did. It was very interesting.
Is it this
She
this clip here? Should I play it?
Yeah, but what she did not only announce a war, not a war on drugs, but like asphyxiating the cartel organizations, but she built what she calls pilots for inclusion and addressing the causes and the roots of the traffic cooptation of young people. So she announced the Juventud Transformando Mexico, the Youth Transforming Mexico program, where she targets social integration through education, sport, culture, employment for vulnerable young people across the country. So this is a full spectrum. Look, we need also to give an opportunity to those people living in poverty and next door to the drug trafficking. We have to include them. We have to give them a future, the possibility to dream, the possibility of education. It's not enough to come here with the machine guns and remove them, because they will be refilled. They will today Mencha is gone, and tomorrow who's going to be the next Mencha? So I think it's an overall policy and not this war on drugs that the US want us to believe. And by the way, why they don't do the war on drugs on their pharma industry at home? If you go anywhere in the West, you get prescription pill of codeine. Codeine
I mean,
hooks
the
you
thing is,
time.
they also have 25% of the world's prison population.
Yeah, black people.
Even though, so basically their war on drugs is just a huge failure because they still have rampant drug use. You see that the fentanyl zombie fold, that has been going around social media. It's just horrific, but that happens in, so many areas in the US. That you don't see that everywhere. They obviously have a huge drug
No.
problem, but they also have a rising prison population. So obviously the war on drugs is not the right way. And I think, to your point, like, is this the video where Claudia Scheinbaum talks
Yeah, and I
about?
think to your point, as you say, you couldn't say it more accurately. The war on drug is a pretext. It's actually a war on sovereignties, is a war on the black, is a war on the poor, is a war on the marginalized. This is what it is about, how America is saying this, the war in US terms.
And also, let's not forget that the Sackler family that was responsible for the opioid, largely responsible, I would not completely responsible, but largely responsible for the opioid epidemic. They were fined, but they're going to be rich forever, right? They were fined. They were found guilty.
They have legalized drug in America. At the largest
they are
scale.
actually.
You can have codeine. You can shop for codeine. You can shop for opioids.
I mean, the Sackler family is a different case because, yes, it's horrible, all you're saying, but they actually understood that the Oxycontin that they were peddling was addictive, and they were peddling it as non-addictive, and that is an opioid, and their name is still on the V&A museum. I was in the V&A elevator and I saw their name because they whitewashed their crimes. That's what rich people do.
Ileana, but do you think that the FDA and the American government did not know this was highly addictive stuff? have
I think they knew. That's why they found guilty.
Biggest research center in the world, and they don't know this was
they knew. Yeah, they knew.
fraud. Of course, everyone knew it was a fraud. They legalized one of the largest cartel in the world. And you know what? I think if if the drug would really come that much from Mexico, the Americans will make sure this frontier doesn't exist anymore. You know, they will be the first. They will be the first one breaking the wall. If the codeine and everything would come from Mexico, they would make sure there was no wall between the U.S. and Mexico.
Yeah, exactly. If there wasn't like internal participation.
Yeah.
Should we play this, or have you already explained
let's play this? Can you stop a little bit so I can
start again? But you're going to.
Okay, I can do. So, yeah. You don't need to stop. I can do the operations. All they have been carried out by federal forces. There's no participation in this operation by the US forces. What there is a lot of interchange of information. As we said here several times before, it's an agreement based on the exchange of intelligence information. And in this case, there were information from the US. They disclosed an intelligence communication, but the entire operation, the planning, the responsibility is Mexican federal forces, and in this case, the Secretary of National Defense. So that's a clear message. I love Claudia Scheinbaum.
Okay, interesting. So basically, the reason she's saying that is because Trump is trying to take responsibility of dealing with the drug cartels, right? And she's saying, no, actually, Mexico already dealt with the drug cartels.
Well, I think what she's saying is Trump was pressuring Mexico, saying that we're going to intervene in Mexico as he did with Venezuela, because you cannot deal with your cartel problems. What she's saying, no, we have a program. We are allowed to cooperate because we are a sovereign nation. We can cooperate with your intelligence, but we are the one that have jurisdiction over Mexico. Don't come and think you, Trump, have jurisdiction over Mexico. We have jurisdiction over our own land. We're going to cooperate, but we are a sovereign state. I think she's saying we are a sovereign state. We deal with this. Bugger off, Trump.
Right. Yeah. I think, again, because Trump probably did take credit for it.
Could be. Who knows?
I think that's what happened.
Yeah, it would be strange if you wouldn't take credit for it, isn't it? It would be really strange if you wouldn't do anything. Any PR. You know, it was so funny because Pam Bundy was trying to do the same as Trump does. You know, the government, not the government, the congressman for California was talking about the Epstein files, and she say, well, let me read what's going on in California. You know, Trump does this, but he does this with a very natural charisma and elegance that she could.
Don't go so far.
Yeah, picking up things in the floor. Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, yes. So okay. So anything else about that? Like, I think that was really interesting. Thank you for that report, because I've been wondering about it. And, you know, we'll certainly, I think Mexico is a place that we can cover more of, maybe in Global South Rising.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But that's interesting to hear. So should we go on to the next story?
Yeah, I want to know about Modi in Israel. Oh my God.
This is interesting because you're seeing Modi, and let's pull this up. You've got a George Galloway.
I can put it up.
Here we go.
Okay, you got it? Okay.
Yeah, I got it. I'm just going to share the screen. So India's PM Modi has been awarded with the Speaker of the Knesset Medal of Honor. What is this?
כבוד יושב ראש הכנסת וכבוד.
Okay, that's very interesting. So it just is extremely ironic. And also, I think, as you've put here, so Modi has become the first world leader to receive the Speaker of the Knesset medal, the highest honor of the Israeli parliament, presented personally by Knesset Speaker Amir Ohana after Modi addressed the Knesset. Modi told the Israeli parliament, India stands with Israel firmly, with full conviction in this moment and beyond, and closed his speech with Israel Chai, Hebrew for the people of Israel live, to a standing ovation. Of course, the International Court of Justice is examining Israel under the Genocide Convention, right? I mean, I think it's like at this point well known, well established across the world, really, that Israel is committing a genocide. And yet Modi is visiting, because of it, receiving the parliament's highest honor and declaring unconditional solidarity. India is currently Israel's largest arms buyer, with defense acquisitions covering missiles, radars, aerospace systems, and intelligence platforms. So this is kind of, I think when we look at India, and we remember that India is the I in BRICS, this is kind of an interesting thing, because if you remember earlier last year, during the whole Trump supposed trade war, India sort of momentarily moved towards trying to strengthen ties with China, or it seemed to be so. And now it's like moving right back into the fold of US puppetry, US imperialism. I'm going to show you later on the same sort of rhetoric coming from the Taiwan area leader, Qing Lai-de. My God. Talk about bad at names.
I don't know any names at all, so yeah.
Yeah,
if you know the name, I can put the name to the face. Yeah.
I'll show you this now, actually, because I think it's important to really show, essentially, there is a script that these US puppets have. They tend to be the same thing. So here we have Qing Lai-de here. He attends the APAC dinner event. So you see, this is very nice. And I want to say that, okay, this is what he says about Taiwan, the United States, and Israel. Taiwan, the United States, and Israel may be geographically distant, but we are all firmly committed to freedom, human rights, and the rule of law. We stand on the front line against authoritarianism, defending our way of life and our fundamental values. So this type of propaganda, US propaganda, I think is really waning. It's really waning. Most people can recognize that Israel is committing a genocide. Most people can see that they're not standing for human rights, and they understand that the US is also funding Israel, and the US is committing, it's just always committed transgressions against human rights, against international law, etc. So I think that sort of like veneer of moral authority is crumbling. We can see that, I think, more and more. Yet these US puppets, this Taiwan area leader, Qing Lai-de, and Modi, they just verbatim are following this script as if it hasn't crumbled. Right? As if it gives them authority or moral authority.
As if it hasn't crumbled. Yeah. You know what, Ileana, I was going to ask you, I don't think we really can have a question on that, but maybe people in the chat can comment on this as well. China plays a very, very important role in the BRICS. And historically, India has a very important role in the BRICS. And historically, India has sided time and time again against anti-colonialism, Palestine. India has a history of being international anti-colonial. And here we have Modi.
Was India ever pro-Palestine? Because I know a lot of, because of the Muslim Hindu divide in Israel, in India, sorry.
Yeah.
A lot of them are anti-Muslim and anti-Palestine because of it.
No, before India was pro-Palestine, India's support was against the apartheid in South Africa. India had general in anti-colonial history in supporting countries against colonialism. And now you have Modi coming in this parliament mid of a genocide and praising the Nazis, praising the Nazis because we have already established that Zionism is a form of racism at its highest, which is a supremacy of the Jewish people.
I mean, genocide does not exist without dehumanizing an entire group of people.
Yeah.
So that's like the nth degree of racism. There's no higher racism than genocide, right? Because
no,
identifying a group. Yeah.
Zionism is a racist, a form of racist that acts on genocide and colonization. You can't get any worse than that. And there you go, Modi, and goes there. And I think, what does that mean for the global South? What does that mean for BRICS? When India, who had a ruling class that always plays nice with America, engaged with America, but now also tries to engage with China, India seems to me to be playing a very divisive game. But if you think of it ideologically, Modi fits well because now Modi is persecuting Muslims in India. Modi is engaging with a racist ideology within India, a country that is so rich culturally.
I mean, I think there's several things there. Like, one, Modi is sort of known as a very right-wing figure in India, very divisive, as you were saying, but also in terms of how India sort of fits into this geopolitical infrastructure, right? Like, India was primed to be the US's answer to countering China. And it's just never been. And there's a reason why. It's because India is capitalist. And so all the power that China really has because it's socialist. I mean, honestly, I know lots of people find this shocking to believe, but it is really big. It's not because I am ethnically Chinese. It's not because, ethnical Chinese people are just like superior. No, it's not about racial supremacy. It is really about a socialist system that has allowed them to lift up over 850 million people from absolute poverty, but also share the resources, share the prosperity gained. And that is the opposite of what India has decided to do. Because they've decided to go towards this capitalist model, therefore the disparity of wealth gets more and more wide. They're not sharing the resources, not investing in the country in the same way. And you can see the results of it now. But because it was always touted as this replacement for the US, a country that would align with the US politically, basically do the US's bidding, but be the manufacturing powerhouse that China became. That was always the US vision for India, someone that's under their thumb, but still could be their factory. But
very interesting.
Precisely because it's not socialist, it cannot achieve that level of upskilling that China has achieved.
I'll give you an example of that. So Modi's also a propagandist. Lula just went to visit China and he came back home. Brazil is the third reserves on rare earth in the world. China supplies 92 of them, but Brazil only have the reserves, doesn't have the means to transform it, to process it. So yeah, so so the state I'm sitting is the state with the largest rare earth, one of the largest rare earth in the world. This is not good. Here we are, the state with the highest inequality rates in Brazil, region poor. Yeah. So Lula went to do an two memorandum of understanding with India about Brazilian rare earth to try to. It's okay, Brazil can do that. Brazil can provide, and India as well. But I think Modi is turning this into a huge propaganda machinery, not huge, but a propaganda machinery to say we're going to be free from China. What Modi is not saying, but Lula is, we cannot process it. So, I mean, you still depend on China to process it. Yeah. Hello. They are saying, well, we're going to process it, but what the process they are doing is just the second step. I think you have 5 steps. Yeah. So, I mean, you see in a multipolar world, you should diversify your economy. You should make deals whoever you want. But Modi is using this memorandum of understanding, it's not even a contract, to pretend that they are going to be free from China. I feel there is a war on China being revived here, a racial war being revived here with Modi, and this is really damning for the BRICS project. I think we need to talk more about India. We can invite someone.
We have to find someone who's also an anti-imperialist that's Indian. And if anyone has any suggestions in the comments,
I have one suggestion that we can call. She lives in Brazil. She's an Indian lady. She lives in Brazil, and Rashmi Singh, and she has been in Palestine. Her master degree was in Palestine. I think we can invite her here to try to understand better this vicious game that Modi is playing. Ileana, I was shocked when he was in the Knesset. I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't really care. It's
like
that institution.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking and it's not shocking. I think it's not shocking because, like I said, the positioning of India as this U.S. sort of aligned kiss-ass country to its detriment. I mean, there's so much potential in India, of course. Like China, I mean, it has a bigger population than China.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's surpassing China in terms of population figures. So that's why the US is so hopeful about using it as its,
and you have one of the most horrible and vicious elites. I thought the Brazilian elites was the worst elites in the world until I met Indian elite. Until you encounter things. They are vicious. They are slave owners. They are having no issues in being slave owners, and most of the time they do align with the US. I think now there's more of a divide. They're seeing that part of it is as I've heard, but can't say it for myself. Some specialists are saying, well, there's a divide there. There are some of the Indian elites are seeing more interesting trades with China than with the US. So
there's a interest there to continue trade with China. I think I'm interested also. Go ahead.
How do you think Modi going to Israel, there is US directions on that? Do you think, it's not only about China and Israel, right? US fits somewhere in this visit. Where do you think it fits?
I think it really is a way to curry favor with the US. I mean, that's why if you look at Taiwan area leader Ching Leiter's remarks, he understands the power and also the US's need right now to preserve Israel's reputation somehow. I mean, I think our conversation that we had with Matthew Ho last week, there's a level of delusion here that is not being shaked off. They genuinely can't understand when that ship has sailed. That horse is dead. They're still kicking it, It's over. No one is going to believe anymore that Israel has the most moral army in the world. That is completely ludicrous. It is over. But these puppets that are, like Zelensky too, right? Like they all are there with their begging bowl. I'm sorry about, I've been told off for banging a lot because my mic picks up the banging. And I'm sorry, when I get excited, I bang and then it's ridiculous. But yeah, so they all know, where the bread is buttered. They understand what the US is trying to do, which is, because Trump will always say that, like, look at the Board of Peace, look at their development of Gaza. They're still trying to preserve this image of Israel as if it is preservable in any measure. So these puppets, to ingratiate themselves with the US, you know what I mean? They just go over the top with it. I mean, saying this, we are firmly committed to freedom, human rights, and the rule of law about Israel and the United States. That is completely ridiculous. But it's like they know where the money is coming from, and it's not coming from standing up for the truth. That is not what
Yeah,
happens
because
here.
what do I want to do with Israel? A tiny, well, Israel in terms of if you think it's a conclave, a colonial a colonial enclave in the Middle East by the British and the West, and now Europe loves it too. It's a colonial project, no doubt about it. If Israel wasn't a colonial project, they would never go and show up this. Less
Also,
so, yeah.
yeah, and also you have to realize like that not you, but everyone has to realize that the same language applies for Ukraine. They will talk about Ukraine in the exact same way, and it's because this is the US's project for. They're trying to create this idea of Ukraine and this idea of Israel as a morally just thing, you know, and so they're just adding to that because they know that's what the US wants to hear. But anyone who has logic can see that this is not, it's just not the case at all.
The problem is that the propaganda blur our understanding, our logic, and is there to confuse us. But yeah, of course, this is never only between India and Israel. As you say, they're going suck up to the US by going to Israel. And you know, I think there's a psychological element of feeling important, of feeling applauded. Yeah. Who applauds Modi? Sorry, Modi isn't applauded nowhere. You know, Modi it's not a charismatic leader like Trump, like Bolsonaro. Modi is.
I mean, he's charismatic to a few people, or else.
Yeah. Where does he get a standing ovation? He must have felt really good about his narcissistic, predatory behavior there. You know, that's where, you know, like he felt really forced. So we're both on a racial war. I'm a racial war in India. You're a racial war here as a colonial force. Yeah, we have so much in common. So happy to be here. So happy to be understood.
Absolutely
it's graceful. Yeah. Ileana, we have something really incredible happening in the US. I'm going to share this. This is from our friend Carlos Martinez, Agent of Change. If you want to follow.
It's not in the US, it's in the UK.
Okay, sorry. Well, look how Freud explained this.
Well, yeah, how do you explain this?
Yeah, because sometimes you don't even know who is UK and who is US. They are just so amalgamated.
That's true. I mean, I would say that this is early days, okay? But yes, the fact that Greens are gaining in the by-election is a big deal because prior to this...
Can you read this first?
Oh, do you want to read this post?
The second paragraph is a delight. You're going to love to read it.
Okay, you read it. Let me read it.
No, you read it. You read it.
You want me to read it? I have to find it then.
Yeah. No, here it's in the screen. Okay, so I'll write. An important historic victory for working class and oppressed communities of Britain. Labour stood before the elections offering a status quo neoliberalism, racism, xenophobia, imperialism, state repression, support for genocide, and close ties to the crumbling edifice of modern Epstein capitalism. Reform offer much of the same but worse, openly appealing to the most flagrantly racist and Trumpian ideas. The Greens connected to powerful and growing sentiment that no to genocide, no to austerity, no to war, no to racism and division, yes to basic principles of decency and justice. It's an earthquake. I like so much what's happening in the last couple of years. It's deeply bound with the heroism, courage, and resilience of people of Gaza. Absolutely. The people of Gaza is bringing democracy to our home at their huge costs. Yeah, in a way, they're heroes of humanity.
That overstates it. It overstates it, but it is good. This is a good sign, a good step. But it's early days, and you know, obviously, there's a lot that needs to be done.
So this is only the by-elections. Can you explain to our non-UK viewers what a by-election means?
I think you should explain that. I'm terrible at this.
Yeah, so the by-elections is an election that happens outside of the calendar. It's in Gordon and Denton. So by-election is when let's say the electoral system in the UK is very complicated to understand. You don't vote for a prime minister, you vote for your congressional member in your community. And let's say the majority of congressional the majority of the congressional members elected belonging to a party, let's say Labour got the most votes in Congress, they become, they indirectly, they vote for a prime minister. So there's no direct elections in the UK for prime minister. That's why this is so important. We have here by-election in Gordon Denton of a member of parliament, and he's showing the Labour, he used to have 50%. I think that's the point. You had a Labour, maybe a stronghold here, 51% of Labour, going 25 of Labour. And I think the best thing is that Green is on top of it, right? Unfortunately, you have Reform, which is a fascist party in the UK, ultra-nationalist, xenophobic. It used to be UKIP by Nigel Farage. When we see here, the blue line is ultra-nationalism, which is a concerning trend. So I think we have clearly here a Labour stronghold, because you used to have 8% Conservatives, 51% Labour, and now you have Labour declining, free fall, and the Greens with 40%, who used to have 13%. This is really a major tendency. And by-elections in the UK, they are important because they are a thermometer for the national elections and a thermometer for the government of where people is standing. And here you have Labour Party in a free fall. So this is how much
that's no shock to anyone. We knew that Labour was going to go down. The surprise here is that Greens is, in this particular constituent, outperforming Reform by a huge margin. However, just to give a little damper, I mean, okay, so yes, Greens are growing, and I do think this is because of Zach Polanski's rhetoric, about, hopefully more than rhetoric, honestly, but about Gaza, about all these things, and being anti-racist and stuff. But the Greens have 4 seats right now out of a total 650 MPs. So 4 out of 650. Okay, it's not a majority by any means, but it's just that it's an increase from 1. So prior to this, they had 1. Now they have 4. We need really way more than that. But it's. I think it shows a certain direction, and really, what we can know is that Labour is definitely going to go down. It's not just the Epstein files, supposed, we could call it a scandal, but it's also just basically every single part of Labour has betrayed its constituents, betrayed its base. There's just not, right now, Labour is basically Tories with a different face. That's it. Like, there's no difference.
I argue that they're worse than the Tories in many aspects.
I don't know. I mean, I think they're pretty on par. But the bar is so in hell, so it's hard to, it's like 3 steps out of hell or in hell. It's just so awful. But yeah, so basically, let's see what happens. Essentially, I think our biggest fear, not our biggest fear, but one of our fears was that Reform was going to win, or Reform was going to form a coalition with the Conservative Party. That's what seemed to be most likely. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's good indications. Labour does need to be sort of held accountable for its absolutely terrible track record.
Exactly. This is a form of accountability. Absolutely. If you have a stronghold and you go into a free fall, it's such a clear message. Everyone will have to read this message. And
And the good thing is, this is friend of the show, Carlos Martinez, who will actually be joining us next week.
Exactly. In the first one. And I think we could talk with Carlos about India too, because Carlos is half Indian. His father, Harpal Bra, was a very important political figure in the revolutionary communist spectrum in the UK, a uncommitted anti-imperialist, a man who left a very important legacy. So it would be good to understand what's going on in India. I found it sometimes astonishing how Modi is playing there. And my concern is, how does that affect BRICS? India will always affect BRICS. And the rivalry between India and China, which we thought had easy, what was going on there?
I mean, the truth is, it's not. I mean, yes, there is a historical, cultural rivalry, but the truth is, it's not about India versus China, is it? And the
No,
US is trying to make that and amplify those
exactly.
differences, but it's not about India and China. India would really greatly benefit from working with China. So
Oh yeah, so much so that the Indians, traditionally US aligned, are turning to China because they know what is good.
yeah, it's like every single thing that we've covered sort of in our, I don't know, like 12 weeks, Sarah, that we've been doing the show, or a little bit more.
November, December, I don't know, I can't count. I'm really bad.
Almost 16 weeks, I think. Every time we're just like, will these countries, at what point will the self-interest actually kick in and they stop doing US's bidding, or rather they start shifting out of the US imperialist system? And every week we just find that countries will stoop to another low, and then they'll just stoop to another low, and I don't know when this sort of hypnosis is going to stop happening, but this is why we have to focus on the global South rising,
As
because
well, yeah.
it's important to like focus on the gains that are actually happening, the resistance that is actually happening, and support that as well.
So it's very interesting because we know so little about global South, and there's always so much to discover. I remember the first time I went to India, and I discovered India had a massive socialist legacy.
Yeah, Kerala is communist, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah. So a consistent, let's say not massive, but consistent legacy, or that China, everyone study Marxism throughout their lives. There are so many other ways. In Brazil, we have the largest social movement in the world that does revolutionary acts. In the UK, they'll be classified as terrorists. They go where you have huge parts of land. The Brazilian constitution say if you have a land that is productive, you're not entitled to this land anymore. So they, of course, unproductive means something. So MST go to these lands, invade those lands, and live in those lands for years and years in plastic tents to pressure agrar reform. So in a way, they are a fierce revolutionary movement. I lived with them for a little while, but I lived in their university. They have an agroecological university. They're against organic. Organic is a scam. They say agroecological, there is no exploitation of people and nature. We are one with nature. And they are the largest rice agroecological producer in Latin America. They have the schools under Paulo Freire. So children from the MST go to the schools of Paulo Freire, who is a revolutionary on education. You see Paulo Freire everywhere in the world. I think he's one of the most translated Brazilians. So we have a lot of beautiful things happen that the US try to erase. So we get into a relentless pessimism and hopelessness and think the status quo is the only thing available. It's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. Cool. I'm very excited to be getting into more of these topics with you, Sarah. And thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We really do appreciate, especially the commenters, but also all the silent rewatchers as well. We appreciate, you don't have to comment. Of course, we enjoy like the discussion back and forth with commenters, but obviously it just means a lot that people are starting to slowly watch the show, and hopefully more will join us as we change the format to something that I think is really missing right now in the overall what do we call ourselves? Like media, but not, we're like independent media space.
Yeah, basically. Independent. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, share.
Oh, yeah. And please, like, subscribe, share, join our social media. Also become a patron on Patreon. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Become a patron. We have costs. We have huge costs, right, Ileana? And we are doing this.
And we're not breaking even.
Yeah.
So if you support our work, it really does help. Just like any sort of donation that you can give would just help with the costs, because, so thank you. We appreciate that. Okay, great. I'm really excited. Next week, Sarah, Global South Rising, everyone. Please join us there. And thank you, everybody. Thank you. And for the last time, we're going to be playing this outro. Exciting.